Welcome to the Aim High broadcast. I'm your friend and host, Miss Tammy Walker Jenkins. Come on in, and before I get started on this hot topic, I want to make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Go ahead, subscribe to my channel, as well as I want you to provide your comment, your feedback. Talk to me, invite your friends, tag your friends, let everybody know that Miss Tammy is on Aim High Broadcast Talk Show. And if you would like to be a guest, it's only thing you need to do, look at my profile and send me an email, and then you and I can talk about you coming on the broadcast, and I can interview you, and you might have a good story or good journey that you would like to share, and I'll welcome you to be a part of the Aim High Broadcast Talk Show. So we're going to go ahead and jump on in, so I won't be before you long. But this is a hot topic, and this is something that I know that I have experienced personally in my life, and I know that probably you have experienced it personally in your life, so we all can relate to it. And so that's why I would love your feedback, as well as let me know, how did you overcome it? Let me know how you dealt with it. So what I want to talk about today is beware of jealousy among you. Be aware of jealousy among you. And when I mean among you, I'm talking about right next to you. I'm talking about people you connected with. I'm talking be family members. It could be church members. It could be your in-laws. It can be your best friend. It can be your neighbor. Be aware of the jealousy that surround you. So we want to talk about jealousy. So the first thing is, I would like to ask you, have you experienced someone being jealous of you for no reason? Or are you jealous of another person for no reason? Where does this jealousy come from? So in my study time, I was like, what have I done to someone for them to be jealous of me, when I know that I always nice, try to be nice, always trying to be fair to people, treat people fairly, treat people the same. That was my upbringing, my parents always say, do to others as they do to you, is, avoid trouble. Be respectful, be mindful. So when you think about this, it's like, where and how do we get this jealousy intent? But first of all, I can say jealousy starts in the heart, starts in emotion, it starts in that mind. And then we begin to act upon all those evil thoughts. So I can say jealousy is evil thoughts and intent towards someone that does not deserve it. And guess what? It's not the person, it's you, it's them. And so I started thinking about jealousy comes in all different kinds of forms, shape, and people. So I started thinking about jealousy. Jealousy, when it comes down to emotions, jealousy is having those funny, evil feeling towards someone, feeling evil or envy towards someone. Jealous can be those insecurities that someone have within themselves. It can be resentment towards someone. Maybe they have a certain status. They have certain financial status. They have a certain car. They have, their family. It can be just resentful as, I wish it was me. I want what they have. Then jealousy can be just suspicious of someone. Sometimes we say, I don't like him or her. It's like something about them I just don't like. Having no suspicious feeling towards someone. And jealousy is just simple having funny feeling towards someone for whatever reason that you might have. So we're going to talk about, why do we have this jealousy that's going on, and how can we change it, and what will happen to us if we continue allowing jealousy to be a part of our life. So I start thinking about, jealousy, like I mentioned, can be among friends, You can have friends that are jealous of you. You can have friends that are jealous because you're friends with other people. Jealousy can be at the workplace among employees. Jealousy can be with your in-laws. Jealousy can be among relatives. Jealousy can be among church. Yes, I said jealousy can also happen in church. It's because God is raising up someone. God is opening up doors. God giving favor. And then jealousy can happen in the house of the Lord. Yes, it can. Because guess what? We find out in God's word that there was jealousy right there in the beginning of the Bible. So we know that we have Genesis to Revelation. And at the beginning of the gospel in the book of Genesis, God bring us to a beautiful story of how jealousy was right among the family. Right among the family. And we're going to get to that later. But also, I do want to let you know is that never think that jealousy is normal. There's nothing normal about someone being jealous of you or you being jealous of somebody. One thing I can tell you is that jealousy is not like a light switch. You can't turn it on. You can't turn it off when you want to. It has to be controlled by something much higher and something greater and powerful and something that you must say, I don't want this to be a part of me. This is not my DNA. This is not who I'm supposed to be. This is not how I'm supposed to act. So we want to make sure that we get that out of us. Anything that's not good for us, we want to get it out, because one thing is this, is that jealousy will not spare at the time of evil. And we don't want jealousy to cause harm to someone else that does not expect it or deserve it. Because no one deserves to be mistreated or mishandled or disabused because of jealousy. Okay? So let me go ahead and I'm going to summarize this. I'm going to go to Genesis chapter 37 to 50. So when you have time, go ahead and read Genesis 37 to chapter 50. It's a story of sadness, but it's a story of victory. Okay. And so anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and summarize a little bit of it. So starting in 37, that many of you know or maybe don't know, if that Joseph was an interpreter of dreams. His father was Jacob. Now, Jacob was an older man and Joseph was his last child. But he also had other siblings. And so he had two brothers that he was working with in the vineyard, and they was tending to flocks. And what happened is that Joseph knew that he was his father's favorite child. So another thing is this, is that as parents, is that when you have more than one child, you need to make sure that you do not have jealousy towards one child over the other child. Now, I hear people say, well, I'm my father's or my mother's favorite child. Well, what happens is that when we allow our children to say, I am the favorite child of the other child, it makes that other child with those insecurities. It can make the other child or children feel as though they are not valuable, or they not at love, or they start having that resentment. And so as parents, I would advise, if you're doing that, if you are saying, hey, this is my favorite child, today, let it be your last day saying that you have your favorite child, because we should love all our children the same. They have different traits, different characters, but you love them 100% across the board the same. So either way is that Joseph's brothers knew that he was his father's favorite child. Then at the same time, Joseph was a dreamer, so he was able to interpret dreams. And so he was going, and God had gave him this dream, and he went to his father and his brother, and he started telling them about the dream. And so it come down to one of the part is that he ended up telling his brothers them that he had a dream that he was going to end up being a king. Okay. And so when he told his brothers them that, hey, I am going to be a king and then y'all going to be under me, I'm summarizing it. And his brothers them became hateful because it was like, how dare you think that you are our little brother and that we supposed to serve you? And so then Joseph ended up having a second dream. And so he went on, I'm going to read this verse to you. And it says, then he dreamed another dream, and he told his brothers and said, look, I have dreamed another dream, and this time the sun, the moon, and even the stars bow down to me. He talking about, we talking about the sun that's up, that's hanging in heaven, the sun, the moon, and the stars, they're going to bow down to me. And when they said that, Joseph ended up going to tell his father and his brother that, and they became enraged. Not the father. The father kept it in mind what his son said. But the brothers became so vindictive, so hateful, so ugly that they end up later on in chapter 37 when Joseph went out to the field to take care of the flocks, and he went wandering. And so when he started wandering, and then they end up, a man came up and say, hey, what are you out here, you young boy out here? He said, well, let me go find my brothers because we were feeding the flock. And all of a sudden his brother far off. Now, these are the two brothers that hated him, hated their little brother. Remember, beware of jealousy. Jealousy can be right around you. Jealousy can be right in your home. And so as he walking towards his brother, the first thing that brother them said that they end up coming up with a conspiracy, and they decided is that they was going to go ahead and tell daddy that a beast end up devouring him and that their brother Joseph had died. And that's the story that they end up keeping. But what they end up doing is they end up selling their brother Joseph to Egypt. And so it goes on and on, is that this is the story that they told dad. So now daddy is thinking that a beast killed my son, because what Jacob ended up doing is, because Joseph was his favorite son, he made him this real fancy tunic. It's a coat with all these pretty colors. So what they end up doing, they end up ripping it up and tearing up and make it seem as though the beast devoured him, that he was dead. But actually what the brothers did is sold their brother to Egypt. Beware of jealousy right among you. And so I'm going to go in verse 39. It's going to go and it tells you more about how Joseph's brothers sold him to Egypt, and also that he was in prison. He was a prisoner, right? So even while he was in prison, he was a prisoner, he also went in prison with two other people. And what happened is that they still had a king that was having dreams. And so guess what? God will always make room for your gift, because the gift of God is without repentance. So even they end up having the king at the time, the king of the prisoner was able to understand a dream he had. But guess what? Joseph was still an interpreter of the dream, and he was able to go and say, hey, I can tell you what that dream means. So anyway, so the prisoners one prisoner end up dying, one of them end up being free. He said, hey, when you go out, you make sure you tell Pharaoh that I told you about the dream. But sometimes when you get free, you forget about those that help you, right? Sometimes you be there, you help other people, and then when you get your freedom or you get your blessing, you forget to thank the person, or you forget to say, hey, I only come this far because if it were for somebody to help me, I would not be able to get no help. I would not be, but that's a whole nother story, okay? So now we're going to come back to is now that's a big old famine in the land, right? And so now Joseph's brothers them had to go back to Egypt. Don't forget, this is where they sold their little brother at because of jealousy. And so in verse 42, it tells you that Joseph's brother went to Egypt because there was a famine. They needed food, but guess who was a king? Oh my goodness, God had already raised up Joseph. He had favor with Pharaoh. And guess like he said, is that the stars, the moon, and the sun was going to bow down to me. And guess who was going to have to end up answering and meeting their brother again? The one that sold him to Egypt. And so now it goes into chapter 43. And chapter 44 is when Joseph get to the point that he sit here and he knows that they are their brothers, right? And so they did not even recognize Joseph with their brother. And so the story goes on that Joseph decided that he told everybody else to leave, and that he wanted to have a personal meeting. He wanted to have his one-on-one time with his brother to let his brother say, hey, I'm the one that you sold in Egypt. And Joseph was going to be the one that ended up blessing them with the things that they need. And they said and they wept and they cried because they realized what they did to their brother was wrong. Because guess what? Jealousy was right around Joseph when he was a little kid. So what I want to tell you is that jealousy is something that you do not want to be part of your DNA. God did not give you the spirit of jealousy, because even in the book of Genesis, it tells how evil jealousy was towards Joseph. But guess what? In the midst of it, God did never allow, and Joseph did not allow envy and hatred in his heart to, guess what we say, repay. You know, when someone do us wrong, we say we're going to repay them. We're going to repay them. In due time, I'm going to repay them. But the whole while, Joseph had a high calling of God. Joseph didn't let what someone did him and how he was mistreated to end up treating them the same way. And so they talk about verse 46, how Jacob journeyed through Egypt. And then we go to chapter 48 is when they get to the point that Jacob ended up blessing his brothers and their family, right? And then in verse 49, Joseph have the chance to end up meet his son, meet his father, and let him know that I was still alive. And it is a beautiful story. But the other thing I want to take you to is I want to focus on, because I wanted to give you a little bit history about beware of jealousy. Jealousy could be right in your home. You may have experienced jealousy with your brothers, with your sister, and like I said, your in-laws. And so you have to be aware that it does happen. And the question in your mind is, why is family jealous of each other? Why is there sibling jealousy, brother jealousy? Why? We come from the same mother and same father. But when you have a parent that show favoritism towards one child, that's when that jealousy occur. Because children can tell that mom or dad is treating me different than how they treat someone else. So as a parent, is we want to make sure that you treat all your children the same, so they won't grow up like Joseph did with his brothers, right? Now, let me go to Proverbs 6:34. Okay, now we're still talking about beware of jealousy, but we also want to talk about how cruel jealousy can be. So when you look at Proverbs 6:34, it said, for jealousy is a husband fury. Jealousy is a husband fury. So if you are married, it said jealousy is a husband fury. And it said, therefore, he will not spare in the day of vengeance. So if there is jealousy between husband and wives, and it says the husband fury, It would not stand. It would not spare when it's time. And so that says a lot, is that as wives, as parents, we do not want to get to the point that we put a love member in a place of jealousy. But sometimes it might not be nothing that you do. It might be you have a jealous husband. You have a jealous wife. I will say you have to pray. You have to pray. You got to have a one-on-one conversation. You might need to go to counseling, because it says jealousy of husband fury will not spare in the day of vengeance. And then I want to go to Proverbs 14 and 30. And listen to this. It says, a sound heart is life to the body. A sound heart, a good, pure heart is life to the body. But envy is rotten to the bone. That is that jealousy. Jealousy is rotten to the bone. So just think about your bone is decaying. Remember, your bone is right. Jealousy will kill you. Jealousy will destroy you. And so that's why we do not want to have that jealousy within our heart and in our mind, nor in our actions. And then I want to go to Proverbs 27 and 4. Let me get there. Proverbs 27 and 4. It said, wrath is cruel and anger is a torment. But who is able to stand against jealousy? That is the question of the day. Who is able to stand against jealousy? No one can. It just said jealousy would not spare in a time of vengeance. Jealousy is not a light bulb or a light flick that you can turn on. A light switch that you can turn on and turn off. Who can stand before jealousy? Jealousy is evil. Jealousy is cruel. Jealousy is rotten of the bone. Jealousy would not spare at the time of vengeance. You will not have control of your actions, of your motive, or your speech. And what I'm saying is that if you are jealous of someone or have those jealousy intent, is that you must pray and seek and cry out to God and tell God to help me, get some counseling, and find out and kill the root of jealousy. If you find yourself jealous of a sibling, jealous of a co-worker, jealous of a friend, a neighbor, in church, it's rotten to the bone, and it will not spare. And guess what? It definitely will not bring you no peace, because we already talk about, it says, what is that scripture? That was Proverbs 14 and 30. Let me go back to it. A sound heart is life to the body, but envy and jealous is right into the bone. It will kill and destroy you. So I am super excited is that I wanted just to take a few minutes to encourage you. Beware of the jealousy tendencies that you might have. Be aware of jealousy that can be around you. And either or, if you find yourself operating, moving, and thinking and have those jealousy intent, is to pray, get rid of it, and let it go. Because at the end of jealousy, it is full of destruction. I thank you for tuning in to the Aim High broadcast. I look forward to you. Make sure you subscribe, you share, provide me your comment, and you take care and you have a great night.